Good afternoon. I am Susie Stern, the incoming chair of the Democratic Council of America's Board of Directors. These last 4 weeks, we have witnessed unprecedented events in American history, including a harrowing presidential debate, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and a grotesque Republican National Convention. However, despite these moments of anxiety and violence, I feel immensely hopeful, as I'm sure many of you are as well. Because in another unprecedented event, Vice President Kamala Harris is now our presidential nominee. We are incredibly grateful for President Biden's remarkable accomplishments and records of success delivering for the American people and his strong partnership with the Jewish community. Throughout his 50-plus year career in public service, President Biden has stood with Jewish Americans because he shares our values, and we stand with him and deeply appreciate his leadership. Since President Biden made the selfless decision to pass the baton of leadership to Vice President Harris, we have witnessed an incredible surge of excitement and enthusiasm around her candidacy. JDCA was proud to be among the first to endorse Vice President Harris and prepare to win this election. The stakes could not be higher, and we're thrilled to throw our full support behind her. There is renewed energy in the Democratic Party, and there's a lot of energy at JDCA, and we're ready to get to work to elect the first woman, the first Black woman, the first Asian American woman, and a leader who's consistently stood with the Jewish community as the 47th President of the United States. So we welcome you all to our Kamala Kickoff. At JDCA, we're privileged that our CEO for the past 6+ years, Halie Soifer, worked for then Senator Kamala Harris as her national security advisor. Halie witnessed firsthand Vice President Harris's principled leadership and firm commitment to our shared Jewish and American values, and she's going to share with us today what she experienced during her time working for her. Also joining us today is former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides, who served as ambassador for the Biden-Harris administration from December 2021 to July of 2023. Ambassador Nides, thank you for your service to this country and for joining with us today. And Halie, over to you to begin today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Susie. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for our Kamala Kickoff. We are grateful to the more than 1,000 of you who are joining us from all over the country to discuss, to celebrate, and to get to work to elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. 7 years ago, as Susie mentioned, I was so grateful for the opportunity to work for then Senator Kamala Harris. I arrived in her office in January of 2017, right at the beginning of the Trump administration. Every day, as Donald Trump attacked our values and norms, first with the Muslim ban, then with his alignment with dangerous right-wing extremists, then with his depraved declaration that there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville, which of course there were not. The list went on every day. And in those dark days, I was so grateful to work for a senator who shared my values and the values of the Jewish community. And I saw it firsthand in November of 2017, when I had the privilege of accompanying Senator Harris and Doug Emhoff, now our second gentleman, hopefully soon our first gentleman, to Israel, where I saw firsthand her staunch commitment to Israel's security and the U.S.-Israel relationship. Kamala Harris is a transformative leader who gave me and continues to give us hope. She has transformed this presidential race in the past 100 hours. Yes, it's been 100 hours. And she has been fighting for our values her entire career. And I can't wait to see what her historic leadership and vision would mean as president of the United States. So today we're going to have a discussion about the vice president's record on issues of importance to Jewish Americans with our good friend and the former ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides. And you're all a part of the discussion. We're going to start by talking with each other about different things that we're hearing, and then we'll take your questions, which you can start by putting in the chat as we speak, and we're going to get to as many as possible. And maybe, if we're lucky, we might have a surprise along the way. So we'll get started. So Ambassador Nides, thank you so much for joining us. You are
Thank
a
you.
good friend and dear friend of the Vice President and the Second Gentleman. What excites you about the possibility of her serving as president and Doug serving as the first Jewish gentleman? And what's the one thing about both of them that you think we all should know?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm in a hotel room, so the bed's not made, but I apologize. But you'll have to get over it. So let me just first say, how cool is this? Okay. I mean, literally, just think about where we were 5 days ago. And I think where we are today is a remarkable feat. And I'm going to talk about her in a second, but I just want to pay tribute to Joe Biden. Okay. Because to be clear, Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris. So none of us should be understanding. She wouldn't be in the position she is right now if it wasn't for Joe Biden. And let us all say, for whatever you think of how this thing's all played out, Joe Biden has been a remarkable president and certainly has been a remarkable president for the Jews, okay? And again, as a guy who was the ambassador, and when Joe Biden got off that plane on his 10th visit, when I was there on Ben Gurion Airport, he got off the airplane and went up those stairs and went on the podium and looked into the camera and said the following: "You do not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist," okay? This guy understands Israel and his kishkas, okay, as they like to say. And what he did on October 7th, going to Israel 5 days after the war, sending those big, huge ships in the Mediterranean and telling the, Hezbollah and Iran don't screw with Israel. And the idea is sent General Kurilla to Israel to make sure the Iranians, when they were attacking Israel, they had a coordinated attack. And to be clear, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, was in every single one of those meetings. Every meeting that I was in, vis-a-vis Bibi Netanyahu, when Bennett was prime minister and Lapid was prime minister, she was in the room. She was part and parcel of every decision. So as much as love we want to give to Joe Biden on his outstanding relationship vis-a-vis Israel, his partner was the vice president. Because be clear, if somehow she was in a different place than he would be, I assure you one thing, he wouldn't be endorsing her as he did just 2 days ago. So I think that as we think about the historical nature of this decision, we also have to applaud Joe Biden and obviously applaud Joe Biden for selecting Kamala Harris. So I am like, if you had told me, I was doing an event in Martha's Vineyard, I guess a week ago with you. I think was that a week ago? I don't remember. The week is gone, maybe 10 days ago. Was it? Well, how long ago was that?
It was a long time. It was a week.
A week
It's
ago.
been a long week.
In a week, the idea that this woman and Doug has been able to consolidate the support of the Democratic Party in less than 48 hours. Believe me, I thought she was good. I didn't think she was this good. Okay. So the idea that she's been able to consolidate the party in a way that there is no opposition, that there's this unbelievable enthusiasm. If you guys watched her shtick at the campaign headquarters yesterday, or whenever it was, 24 hours ago, it's unbelievable. I'm in California right now. It is crazy how people are reacting to this. And I just think for those of us who are Democrats, which I think 99% of the people on this call are, those who are Jews, I think there's probably 98% of the people on this call are Jews or wannabe. I can't imagine a better place for us to be today. Listen, it's going to be one hell of a race. It's going to be tough. Obviously the whole shtick of the excitement is what it is, and we're going to get to reality here very soon. But I'm telling you, I have never been this excited about what we're about ready to embark on. And I think for all of us who care deeply about being a Democrat and winning this election and stopping Donald Trump and being Jewish and caring about this, as you can see, I'm quite enthusiastic about it, and I don't get enthusiastic about much. So I'm honored to be part of this, and will continue to advocate for her and for her husband and for getting this election done.
Well, we are starting to get a lot of questions, and thank you everyone for sending them. A lot of them surround Israel. And nobody knows this administration's policy on Israel better than you, Ambassador. You were in Jerusalem the first 2 years of the Biden-Harris administration, and you've continued to work with the administration on these issues. What do you say to people who might not be familiar with the Vice President's view on Israel and her deep commitment to Israel's security? And is there any daylight between her views and those of President Biden when it comes to Israel?
Zippo, zero, zilch. I mean, listen, Joe Biden is no pushover, okay? And if you think for a minute that Biden would be saying one thing and he'd be letting his vice president like sneak around and say something else, it's insane, okay? Her view is the same view that I share, the president shares, I think you share, which is one. We got to basically protect Israel at any cost, okay? Israel is a vulnerable country. You have Iran, you have Syria, you have Lebanon, you have the Houthis, you got Hamas. It's a country that needs to be protected. I've had 100 phone conversations and meetings with the vice president and Doug about the need to protect the state of Israel, the homeland of the Jewish people. Okay. She also, in every conversation I've been with her, she's been very focused on the need to destroy Hamas. And at the end of the day, we need to not only destroy Hamas, we first of all need to get these hostages back. And I know she's met with hostage families, and I was in Israel 24 hours ago, 38 hours, and I spoke at Hostage Square, okay? This to me is who we are, this administration is, and what they're trying to do. So I am, in my view, and how you know, Bez, you went with her to Israel. You tell me what happened on your trip to Israel with her, and the multiple times, and we'll talk about the different policy aspects of this, but I just think that is her views on Israel are exactly 100% the same as mine, which is at any cost we got to protect the state of Israel. We got to get those hostages back. And yes, and we have to have a ceasefire. We've got to get the hostages back, which will lead us to a ceasefire, which will lead us to rebuilding Gaza and rebuilding the Middle East. That to me is the priority. But as someone who's spent a lot of time with these hostage families, you got to get these hostages back first before you can do with anything else. But tell me what happened on your trip when you went with her, because you were the national security advisor when she was senator, right?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
So
And
you could tell that.
So that was actually her third trip to Israel. She has been a supporter of Israel throughout her career and went for the first time when she was district attorney of San Francisco and attorney general of California. And even as a young girl, growing up in the Bay Area, she's told this story. She actually she had a Jewish community around her, and with her friends, even collected donations on behalf of JNF. She's told the story in those blue tzedakah boxes to plant trees in Israel. As senator, that was her first trip to Israel, and she was proud to support the security relationship. We visited Iron Dome batteries, where she got firsthand understanding of the threat that Israel faces on its borders, where they have to respond so quickly, whether it's from Hezbollah on the north or, of course, Hamas right there on the border with Gaza, and just milliseconds have to decide whether to intercept those rockets. And she deeply appreciates and shares the commitment of the president to the need to continue to provide assistance, to provide for those interceptors, to provide for the Iron Dome. And we saw the importance of this after October 7th, when the president and vice president pledged that unprecedented amount of aid, $14.3 billion in aid, which took 6 months to get to Israel because Republicans delayed it in the House and then in the Senate and then in the House again. But the trip was incredibly important, not just because I saw her deep commitment to the security relationship, but also because she forged relationships with Israeli leaders. I vividly remember our tour of the Knesset, which was given at the time by then opposition leader Isaac Herzog, who is now, of course, the president of Israel. And he took her around the Knesset, showing her the richness of Israel's democracy, literally and figuratively. They watched a debate on the Knesset floor together, and of course he translated, and they walked around and talked about the strength of Israel's democracy. That relationship between her and President Herzog has been incredibly important. I know she's been in touch with him repeatedly as vice president, including after October 7th. And I was recently at the White House when she talked about the horrific terrorist attacks that we saw on that dark day 292 days ago. And yes, that number is forever imprinted in my mind. I just saw the Goldberg Polans, parents of Hirsch, at the Capitol. And of course, they wear that number. And she has provided a source of comfort and support to those hostage families with her repeated calls for a release of the hostages. They have said that it's the vice president and president's support that has been so helpful amid these incredibly difficult times. And tomorrow she will meet with the prime minister. I see in the chat there are questions about where she was today. She was at a pre-scheduled event scheduled weeks ago in Indiana. She will return to DC and be meeting with the prime minister in the White House. And I'm sure she will continue what we have seen and what I saw firsthand the first time she met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, what is an important and constructive dialogue and relationship with the Israeli prime minister. And it's been so vital in the aftermath of October 7th as the vice president has stood with Israel and has stood with our community. So I want
Halie, hey, can I interrupt you 1 second?
Please,
Halie, let me interrupt you 1 second. 2 things. One is I was just had lunch with, not to be a name dropper, with the Herzogs Saturday. And their relationship is really cute between the Herzogs and the vice president. I mean, they're into it. Okay. I mean, obviously they can't be involved in campaign stuff, but just to be clear, he's really into it. So, it was funny because this is before she was going to be the nominee. Because I said, you guys, we have the special relationship. They talk all the time. So that's really cool. And I also want to say, which of course I'm going to get in trouble with, Halie and I actually sat with her for Pesach dinner this year. Of course, it was like a handful of us. I know I'm going to get in trouble. I shouldn't be talking about it, but who cares? Just don't tell anyone I said it. But so the two of us were.
There's only 1.1 thousand people on the call.
Oh shit, whatever. But anyways, I sat next to her, and it just this is like real. I mean, I just listen, and to be clear, not to be that guy, but Doug's a Jew, which kind of sort of he's my kind of Jew. So he and I are like, we joke about how often we go to synagogue, which is not as much as we should. But here's a guy who has spent the last 2 years running around the country talking about anti-Semitism. I mean, it's not the nicest topic to talk about, guys. I mean, he could be talking about, schools and environment. And by the way, he's had an unbelievable impact on the legislation that got passed and the bill that was signed on the anti-Semitism. But not to be that guy, but he couldn't do this unless she was into it. Okay. I mean, although he's his own person, but she's given him the platform, and he'd be the first one to admit it, that she wants him to spend time on this topic. So I don't want to get carried away here about the cell piece of this, but this question around the speech today, she had another event. Quite frankly, even if she didn't have another event today, I would have advocated that she actually act like a president, which does a meeting in her office with the prime minister, right? The two of them in their chairs, having a real conversation, let the media come in, but not doing, political theater, which is people up and down in the Congress. So she will meet with him tomorrow, and that's exactly what an hopefully incoming president does with a leader of a country that is our most important ally. So I am a big advocate of how this thing is playing out, and the speech was a speech, and he praised Biden, which he should have done, and Harris vis-a-vis what they have done for the state of Israel.
Great. You raised a lot of important points there, including the historic nature of the fact that we do have the first Jewish spouse of a president or vice president, and that they've embraced and incorporated Jewish traditions, both the symbols, the mezuzah on the door of their residence, but also sharing Passover with us, with the Jewish community. As you'll recall, the first Seder, the second gentleman had held virtually with the whole community around the country in 2021. But also not just embracing and being a part of the Jewish community. And I have seen them at synagogue, for the record, both of them at Addis Israel. I've seen them there. But also standing with the Jewish community as we have faced this rise of anti-Semitism, and not just in words, but also in action. So the unprecedented White House strategy to counter anti-Semitism that was led by this White House, you're right, the second gentleman played a leading role in having listening sessions with the Jewish community around the country in the development of that strategy. And now, with over a year, not only are these 100 actions in place throughout the US government to be taken, but they've actually expanded upon it after October 7th. As anti-Semitism has risen, they have strengthened their ability, the government's ability to counter anti-Semitism. And this is the first time that we've ever seen that before. I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing different things, and I'm seeing that some things are being repeated that are truthfully a lot of the Republican narratives that are out there. And I think it's important that we distinguish fact from fiction. You know, there was a Republican Jewish Coalition ad today about the vice president that included things that were completely misconstruing the facts. I saw someone put in the chat here that she is reported to do different things, say different things. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. This vice president, and she has stood with Israel. She has been a champion of our values, and whether it's support of Israel or efforts to combat anti-Semitism or efforts to defend our democracy and our reproductive rights, Kamala Harris shares our values, those of the Jewish community. And I'm so proud to support her and to endorse her and to do everything we can to ensure that she's elected in 104 days. So
it's also, it's interesting, I think, one of the things I think is important for us to realize, one of the raps are going to be, is she like support of Israel? I understand she said, good things about the, Palestinian people. I hope she has. I have said it 100 times. This fight is not with the Palestinian people. I've said this 150,000 times. This fight is with Hamas. And the reality of this is we are Jews, okay? We have to feel not only to get these hostages home and protect the state of Israel, but we also have to be compassionate for people who are innocent, who are getting screwed, okay? If those are innocent Palestinians who live in Gaza or in the West Bank, and we have to have an articulation about this, because if we don't, we're never going to bridge the gap with the next generation. I like to say that she is the bridge to the next generation of really pure supporters of the state of Israel because of who she is, because she's a woman, because she's Black and Asian, because her husband's a Jew. She can articulate a way of support of Israel that this next generation can rally around. Not that Joe Biden could do that, because Joe Biden is Joe Biden. But let's be clear, she's of different generation. She can articulate this she can go to college campuses. She can go to our kids. Listen, there's many of us on this phone that have kids that have been giving us grief about what's been going on there. And I want to have Kamala Harris to be standing up there talking about the security of the state of Israel, talking about the importance of the hostage, also talking about the decency of what it is to be a democracy and how important it is to make sure we don't redefine this fight that's us against everyone who's not a Jew. That's insane. And by the way, that's not who we are. This is why we're on this call. Most of us on this call are Democrats. What a opponent of being Democrat is not only to support Israel, obviously, but all the other issues that make us different than the other side. We're a party that we want to have a community of people that are supporting the values that we care about. So I am not only obviously care about her as a person and why it's going to be important for her to win. But for a guy who's been sitting and going on college campuses and going and talking to my kids and my friends' kids, having Kamala Harris stand up and talking about the state of Israel and the support of the state of Israel, and having Doug do what he's doing, boy, I'm telling you, over the long haul, to me, that's going to make us a stronger community and definitely going to be reposition Israel for the next 20 years as we think about how we need to support Israel across the board.
Okay, well, we're going to pause, actually. You remember, I did say that we may have a surprise. So I'm really honored to introduce our special guest who wants to give just a few short remarks. I'm honored to introduce the second gentleman of the United States and my friend, Douglas Emhoff. I am so thrilled at the possibility of the first gentleman in the White House, and we are rooting for you, not just because of our admiration and deep appreciation of the values by which you have lived and led, but also because you have done so much in this role to bring Jewish traditions into the White House and to help us face this challenge of rising anti-Semitism. You've really been a champion, and I want to thank you so much. So thanks for joining us.
Wow. Hello, everyone. Tom, hi. I thought I saw Susie there, Halie, everyone. And I caught probably the last 2 or 3 minutes of what Tom was saying. So I obviously co-sign on all of that. And, it's been a whirlwind. And, I haven't really stopped moving since Sunday, it was Sunday. And I wasn't even with her. I was actually stuck in LA because of all the flight mishigas. So I learned a little bit after everyone else because I had left my phone in the car and I was having coffee with some friends and everyone starts looking at me and fist pumping, like, what is going on? And then my friend said, I think you should look at this. And then I hustled into the car and it was like 30 messages from our next president saying, are you? We need to talk. And then it's just been a whirlwind. So I didn't get to see her until I landed in Wilmington a couple of minutes before I got up on that stage to talk first about Joe Biden and who he is and what he means not only to me personally, I got choked up, but what he means to all of us. And as it pertains to us Jews and the fight against hate and anti-Semitism, I have to tell you, but for Joe Biden and my wife, Kamala Harris, constantly pushing me, constantly, even when I did not want to do it because it was too hard, or it was still feeling what we're all feeling even before October 7th and certainly after. But it was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who constantly pushed me to make sure that we got a national strategy to counter anti-Semitism. We would not have that plan but for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pushing and pushing to make sure that we had that plan. And I cannot tell you how many times behind the scenes, again, when I needed something to help me going, it was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who were there for me each and every time to say, you need to speak for the millions of people who aren't here and cannot speak. So I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing as second gentleman. I'm going to continue to fight against hate of all kinds, and I'm going to continue to fight for us. I'm the first Jewish person ever to be second gentleman, and I'm going to be the first Jewish person ever to be first gentleman when we elect Kamala Harris as our president. And seeing Halie there, it reminds me of our trip to Israel together. Remember that, Halie? It was when
Absolutely.
She was Senator Harris, and she wanted to go to Israel and take me with her to see, she'd been there several times before, but we went and when we saw everything, we had all the meetings, saw everything, and she took me to everything except some of the security meetings. And it was one of the most remarkable experiences of my life to do that with her. And that's who she is. So let me just make this clear. Vice President Harris has been and will be a strong supporter of Israel as a secure, democratic, and Jewish state. And she will always ensure that Israel can defend itself, period. That's who Kamala Harris is. And as president, it's going to be, as Tom was saying, transformative in the fight. Because right now there's 103 days and a couple of hours left between now and a future none of us wants. A future that is less freedom, less secure on the world stage, which is going to lead to more hate, which means it's going to be worse for us Jews. It just will be. So having someone like her who believes in the rule of law, democracy, freedom, fighting for rights and fighting for who we can be, the best of us, that's who she is. And if you didn't believe it, if you have seen her over the last 72 hours, it's a leader. She is a leader. And I'm not just saying this because I'm her husband. I'm saying this because we need that voice right now. And she stepped up and she's going to lead us into the future. So I could not be more proud of her, but I could not be more ready to spend the next 103 days doing this. I'm in Maine right now, and I'm going to just keep traveling. She's going to keep traveling, and we're going to get this thing done, and we're going to continue to fight. And again, I promise you the work that I've done as second gentleman in this fight against anti-Semitism, this fight to eradicate hate, and this I'm just going to keep living like openly like a Jew, and maybe there'll be a mezuzah on the White House, just like there is on the vice president's residence. All right, everyone, so let's get to work. I wish I could see you all in person. I'm sure I will down the line. Keep this energy going, 103 days, keep this spirit, keep this momentum, and we're going to have President Harris leading us into the future. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled to have been joined by the second gentleman from Maine on the campaign trail. We didn't even know that he would be joining until the last minute. But when he found out that we were gathering like this, and over 1,000 of you were going to be gathering for our Kamala Kickoff, he didn't want to miss it. So I hope you all feel that sense of pride. Just imagine having that mezuzah on the White House door. It is quite meaningful and not just symbolically.
Can I say
yes,
one thing too?
please.
He's a really good guy. Okay, so again, I spent a lot of time with him. I mean, he's just like the rest of us. I mean, he's a, and he's, it says a lot about Harris to be married to Doug, and it said a lot about Doug being married to the vice president. It's, you're kind of a judge by who your spouse is. I don't want to offend anyone who doesn't like their spouse on this phone, but you know what I mean. So I like, sitting around having a drink with him. And I think he's just a nice, menschy guy who wants to do the right thing. I mean, this is not easy being the second gentleman. I mean,
he gave up his career to be.
This guy's a successful lawyer. Yeah, totally. Hugely successful lawyer. And, and it just says a lot about their relationship. I mean, for those of you guys that spent time with the two of them, it's kind of cute. They actually like each other, which is kind of a nice thing. And so I just, it makes me happy to see that. And obviously it'll make me even happier if they win. Sorry about that.
I want to tell actually one story. I don't even know if he remembered it, but I remember it vividly. And that is, as he mentioned, it was his first trip to Israel in 2017 with then Senator Harris. And it wasn't her first trip, but it was his first trip. And it was really meaningful for her to be there with him, given the strength of their partnership and their embrace of each other's religions and backgrounds. It was meaningful for her. And as they approached the Kotel for the first time, and he was going to go to the men's prayer area for the first time, it was the vice president, then senator, who remembered to bring the kippah, and she pulls the kippah out of her pocket, and not just the kippah, she even had clips to clip it on, and they paused, and if you can see this picture that I had taken of that moment, it's in JTA from a few days ago, but it was a really special moment because it epitomized the fact that it wasn't just about her being in Israel reaffirming the strength of our relationship, but also it was meaningful for her, given the fact that it was his first time as a Jew, his first visit to Israel. So it was a special moment that also underscored the strength of their partnership and her full embrace of the pride that he feels as a Jew. Now, I know I'm looking at the chat. I know people want to hear more about the policy and the substance, and we can definitely do that. There's a lot of questions being asked about this administration and the vice president's record with regard to Israel's security. I think maybe we should talk for a moment about Iran. Because while we have talked a lot about, of course, the horrific attacks that Hamas perpetrated on October 7th, and we're still reeling from that terror and won't stop until those until the now 100 plus hostages are home. Something happened on April 13th as well. And I think we should talk about that. And we may be in a completely different world had President Biden and Vice President Harris not prepared to defend Israel on that day. Do you want to speak for a moment about that threat and the actions that they took to defend Israel against Iran?
Yeah, I mean, listen, guys. I mean, this is the Iranian threat to Israel is going to be something we're all going to have to deal with. Listen, I worked for Secretary Clinton. I was in the Obama administration. Everyone took a lot of grief about the JCPOA, and there was a long debate about, should it happen, not happen, all the insanity which has come flowing back to me when I see the prime minister in the well of the House today. Here's the deal. Iran is the cancer in the region. They're a supporter of Hezbollah, the supporter of Hamas, they're a supporter of the Houthis, and we're going to have to deal with this. Both, President Harris, when she gets elected, is going to have to deal with this. We're all going to have to do this collectively. In the meantime, this is what these guys did. Biden and Harris basically made a decision that the Iranians, once it was clear that they were going to attack Israel on retaliation for what Israel did to them, what did the president do? The president and vice president made a decision to send the head of CENTCOM, which is highly unusual, Carrillo, to Israel to sit there for 6 days in the IDF headquarters and coordinate with the IDF to make sure those 320 bombs that were going to be flying over to Iran, which we, of course, had no idea how many they're going to be, to coordinate the regional effort that was with Egypt, Saudi Arabia. And the reality is, everyone's like, well, how big of a threat was it? Was one hell of a threat. Okay, any one of those rockets that had gone off kilter could have knocked down an apartment building in Tel Aviv, and we would have been in a regional war. So I'm a very practical guy. I'm a very what are we doing? What's in front of us today? How are we going to deal with this? And the reality of this is that I think under any set of circumstances, this administration, both Biden and Harris, have not only shown a commitment to the security of Israel, but they've also showed, which is important for us not to forget, some level of passion and compassion to what is going on, because we can't be blind to that. And so people need to understand the importance of destroying Hamas, understanding the importance of the fact that this fight is not with the Palestinian people, making sure that we do more humanitarian assistance into northern Gaza. Also, quite frankly, which is the vice president has articulated, which I've been a huge advocate for, let us not watch the whole West Bank completely dissolve into chaos, which quite frankly, not to be that guy, the prime minister and his right-wing government, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, really want to see the destruction of the West Bank as well. And we have to have voices out there talking about how important it is for that not to happen. So I am, the Iran threat is real, but I'm certainly, as someone who was in the middle of all these discussions, I'm proud of what we accomplished, at least attempting to try to stop, which could have been a complete and utter chaos.
So I've been trying to consolidate. We've gotten so many questions, remember. I'm trying to consolidate them all, but I have the perfect one for you that I'm just going to have to read this one. I grew up as a Jewish kid in a thoroughly democratic and pro-Israel family on Kent Road in Duluth, Minnesota. You guys
That
need
someone
to
just
get
said.
together.
Someone said it. That what someone just wrote.
I
That's
think that's
probably one
what
of my
someone
family.
wrote.
Probably one of my family members. Probably one of my family
Okay.
members.
How do we explain to other Midwesterners how the vice president fits with their values, and how can we, we talk about a lot about this election will be determined by the Sun Belt and of course the Blue Wall states, which include the Midwest. How can we ensure that that we, especially with the Midwest, that we galvanize the people, not only the Jewish community, but young people and so many voters out there? How do we do this work?
How about just the word decency? How about just the word compassion? How about just the word of democracy? This Kamala Harris is not just about Israel. Okay, I mean, we're all here because we care about Israel, but I want to get her elected for what she stands for and what Doug stands for and what we stand for. How about the issue of being pro-choice? How about the idea to making sure this next justice that comes to the Supreme Court is something that could advance what we need to do? How about the idea of having a president of the United States talk about immigration and talk about the importance of what's important of people that don't look like us, right? I'm a white Jewish guy from Duluth, okay? How cool is it going to be to have an African-American woman, okay, as the president of the United States? What message does that send to people that live in Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or where I'm from, Minnesota? It's not, again, I grew up, maybe there's plenty of people on this call that are way more religious than I am. So I was a Reformed Jew, the youngest of 8 kids, okay, guys? I mean, my mom was the head of Sisterhood of Hadassah. My dad was the head of the UJA and the Temple. I was a cultural Jew, okay? I was not a religious guy, but I care deeply and passionately about the state of Israel and the security of it. And this is what the vice president cares about, okay? No, she didn't grow up as a Jewish kid, obviously, but Doug did. And I think it's ultimately the values of the people that are on this call is obviously we're on this call to talk about Israel, but being a Jew is about the broader complex of what we are as a society. So anyways, I don't think it's ever be interesting enough. There's never going to be a more contrasting view between Kamala Harris and President Trump, okay? You have 2 distinct views of the future, of what we want to be as a country, what we talk about. And so I am this, again, I worked for Barack Obama. I worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign. I've worked on, a bunch of campaigns. I think this is the most important election in our lifetime for a whole variety of reasons, and certainly for someone who happens to be a little Jewish kid from Duluth.
Okay, and we have determined that the question came from a nephew. So a family member sent that question. We didn't.
There you go.
So there we go. I think it's really important also that we pick up on what you were just saying about the contrast. And I see in the chat that some people have talked about some that say that they will support Donald Trump, or, we hear it, I suppose, though we don't see it in the numbers among Jews, because of Israel. Let's talk about Donald Trump's record on Israel. He moved the embassy in 2018. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. The next year, recognizing that, he didn't win him over a ton of Jewish support, maybe because he had, aligned with right-wing extremists and called neo-Nazis very fine people. He said that Jews who support Democrats are disloyal, right? He continues to demonstrate this animus. Even yesterday on Sebastian Gorka's podcast, he says that Jews who don't support him essentially can't be trusted. What is this? It continues to be his anger and his hatred. And, he really continues to spew animus toward the vast majority of American Jews. And what I have said is, the feeling's mutual, because he is the one who refused to condemn white supremacy on that debate stage in 2020. Instead, he incited an insurrection by saying, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand by." And, he has repeatedly aligned with extremists. And it was his former national security advisor, John Bolton, I don't quote him often, but he did say to the New York Times in April,
Donald Trump's support of Israel is not guaranteed in a second term. He only does what's good for Donald Trump, which is why he also said, Donald Trump said, he moved the embassy for the evangelicals. That's what he said. Everything's a political calculation for him. Only does what's good for him. And, you contrast that even with the Israel policy of this administration. They have been so consistent. They have been so steadfast. And the vice president has been so strong in her support of Israel's security. We know it. We want all of you to know it. And we want you to talk to others. People have asked me, where are the surrogates? Well, you are all on this call. You are all surrogates. So we're going to post talking points in the chat, and we're going to follow up with all of you as well with specific information to ensure that you have these talking points to go out and speak with others. We don't have a lot of time. It is just 104, as the second gentleman said, or 105, depending on how you're counting days until November 5th. But let's face it, people are voting before then. We have early voting. We have vote by mail. People will be voting in 80-something days. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these issues with you, to empower everyone to go out and do this work with us, and to answer some questions. And I still see the questions coming in. So I do hope that we can post those talking points in the chat. I think they've been posted, but we will definitely do that soon. Also, I just want to, one more thing, because people keep posting it in the chat, why she wasn't there today. She had an event that was planned. She is running for president now. She went to Indianapolis. She was meeting with a large convening of Black voters who are absolutely an essential part of the electorate. I always say Jewish voters are a critical part of a winning Democratic coalition, as are Black voters. And she had a pre-planned event, and she is going to be meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow. So it was planned before she was candidate. Guess who else was not in that chamber? J.D. Vance. He's a senator. Where are the questions about where he was? The fact of the matter is, guess what? He was on the campaign trail because he's on the ticket. So that's where he was, just so you know. And I don't hear a lot of questions. Haven't seen anything in the chat about that. It is really important also that we not repeat Republican talking points and false narratives. There's something in here about, about aid and Gaza. The vice president has been very clear. The hostages must get out, and aid must continue to get in to Gaza to avoid a worsening of the humanitarian crisis there. We recognize the distinction between Hamas, a terrorist organization, and the Palestinian people. And hopefully the president and vice president are working hard on this. There will be a ceasefire soon that will allow us to see the release of the hostages. Ambassador, I'm going to give you the final word. I don't know if you have a response to that or prospects for a ceasefire that you want to share with us.
Let me do a couple of things. So this is, so first of all, thank you for having me. I just go back to this point, which is, how cool is this, guys? Okay. How really, really fundamentally cool is this? Okay. I mean, who knows if we can win or not? I think it's going to be a very close election. I think we can. But if you'd asked me 72 hours ago, that's a different place. Okay. This is the energy is like, it's like tingling. I mean, I don't like get carried away here, but it's really cool. And I think we're going to have this very interesting debate about the country. And by the way, you'll be able to look at it on television, the vision between Kamala Harris and what she stands for, and the former president. And it's going to be very clear to everyone, kind of these two contrasting views of America. And so as someone who deeply cares about our future and our kids' future, I think the answer to that is quite clear. This is about a vision of the future, and a vision of what we care about as a country. So I am honored to be her friend and Doug's friend, and I'm honored to talk about what it means for the future of the country. And yes, I'm more than happy at any time to talk about her position on Israel and how she has been, she supported Joe Biden and their collective position on the state of Israel. But beyond that issue, the issue about being, as I am an American Jew who cares about the world and our society, I'm all in. And I think this is going to be a very, very exciting 100 days. So I appreciate everyone showing up, and I apologize that my bed wasn't made, but I'm in a hotel, so I apologize for that. So, but nonetheless,
it's okay. We've got a lot of work to do. Who has time? We're working here. Okay. Well, a lot of you are asking about how you can get involved. This is our kickoff, which means it's the beginning. It's the beginning of ensuring not just that we elect Kamala Harris, but also that we continue to do the work to elect Democrats and hold the majority in the Senate, and that we flip the House from red to blue. And that is well within reach. We need to net 4 seats. There are 17 seats left. There were 18, but we won one back in February. 17 seats left. That Joe Biden won that district in 2020 and Republicans won in 22. We can win those back. So I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Program Officer, Bobby Saperstein, who's going to tell us all how to get involved, do this work, because we just have a little over 100 days to elect Kamala Harris president. Bobby, over to you.
Thank you, Halie, and to thank you to Ambassador Nides, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, Jewish Women for Kamala, and the more than 1,600 of you who signed up for today's program as we launch our efforts to elect Vice President Kamala Harris as the 47th President of the United States of America. I don't have to tell you on this call just how consequential this election will be for ourselves and the future of America, an election now made even more historic because of the events of the past week. To President Biden, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, your unrivaled dedication, service, and sacrifice to and for our country, and for being one of the most productive and impactful presidents the United States has ever seen. Thank you for a lifetime of standing with the Jewish community in times of jubilation and in our darkest hour. And thank you for always supporting the state of Israel and her people. Mr. President, nearly 4 years ago, you saved our country and the world from the abyss. And with your selflessness this past Sunday, putting country before everything, you have given us the opportunity to do so once more. And we will. Today, we've heard from some of the very people who know the Vice President best and her record in support of the Jewish community, Israel, combating anti-Semitism, and the values Jewish Americans care most about. Kamala Harris embodies the very ideals we hold so dear, ideals that make America, America. So now it's up to us to do everything we can to elect the Vice President as our next president, expand our Senate majority, take back the House, and elect Democrats who share our values up and down the ballot. To do that, though, we do need your help. We encourage you to please visit jewishdem's.org to learn about all of the ways you can get involved with JDCA, including by signing up for our emails and programs like these, becoming a JDCA member, making a financial contribution to support our election-related work, and signing up to join one of our state and local chapters and affiliates made up of grassroots volunteers. We also hope you will join us in thanking President Biden for his extraordinary service to this country by clicking on the link in the chat. From now until the election in November, JDCA will be running phone banks on behalf of Kamala Harris and other endorsed Democrats across the country. Please visit the link in the chat to sign up and join us for our weekly phone banks, including those in Missouri, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Florida, and Georgia, to name but a few. We also hope you'll join JDCA this Sunday for our first canvass on behalf of Representative Dave Min in Southern California. Please click on the links in the chat to sign up for all of these opportunities. As we close out today's program, we hold in our hearts the more than 100 hostages taken by Hamas who remain in captivity these past 292 days. We continue to pray for their speedy return home and an end to this war that has claimed so many and so much. Thank you once again for joining us today. Now let's go win this thing. See you soon.